Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Journey and Wander. This is episode 4 of season 2. We're getting down to the end of it here. Now, we've got a special episode to finish off this season, basically. The last 2 episodes are going to be kind of fun. If you're unfamiliar with how this show works, basically what we do is we talk to somebody about their life, and then we have them say somebody who's inspired them or been in their journey, and we have that person on the next episode. Basically, we had a dropout. We weren't able to have either of those guests on. So what I decided to do is we're going to just kind of delve into a couple of my friends who have moved to Chicago recently in the past year, who are a part of the Bend comedy scene. And we'll start off with one of them, and then in the next episode, we'll get to go into another one with the one we're doing this episode as the co-host. So we're same formula, but just with 2 episodes this time. And just to close it out with something special to me, this will be the first time I'm really catching up with these people, seeing their faces other than just a couple texts here and there. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. But so far this has been a good season. I've really enjoyed the guests I've had on, and so let's just jump right into it. Please welcome my good friend, Ben Moore.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm living the dream.
Yeah. You say that every time I see you, and I feel like it's never true.
My way of trying to trick myself into believing it.
Yeah. Living the dream. If it's anything like my dreams, then I feel bad for you. But no, so Ben started off about the same time as me. I think like within the same month, right?
Yeah, I think we missed each other by like a couple weeks.
Yeah. Like so when we were first starting, so basically I had started, I did a few open mics. We were doing mics at this country bar, and there was a open mic comedy competition going on at the time. And one of the qualifying rounds was Ben's first time doing comedy. And he won that qualifier, and I was so bitter about it. I didn't talk to him for like a year, and and then we started talking when we were at a different venue, and I don't know. I don't know about you, Ben, but when I was going into comedy, just thinking it all had to be perfect.
Yeah.
Do you have that feeling? Like I was like, if I bomb, it means it wasn't meant to be. Or
Yeah.
if something bad happens, if I lose this competition, then it just wasn't meant to be for me. And then after bombing and after losing competitions, I loosened up a bit.
See, and I didn't even that was my first time doing stand-up with that competition night, and I didn't even know it was a competition. I just showed up to do an open mic, and it turned out to be a competition.
Right. Well, I remember you killing though.
I blacked out. I don't remember it at all. I blacked out as soon as
really?
as soon as I grabbed the microphone. I don't remember a word I said.
No, I definitely remember you slaughtering. I mean, Wonder Woman had just came out, and you had that Wonder Woman bit that tied into another bit. You were already doing callbacks and tying things into other things on your very first set. And
the only thing I remember about that set was they introduced me by doing that weird fresh meat chant.
They never did that to me. You want to know why? Is because I did one open mic at a food park before then. So when I came in, they're like, so this is your first time? I said, no, I've done it one other time. And they go, oh, okay. And they didn't do that for me. And I was very grateful because it sets a very odd tone.
It does.
It doesn't set the right one. But it basically, if you're in Bend and you do comedy for the first time, the host says, I'm going to say fresh, and you guys all say meat. And they go, fresh meat. And you walk on stage as if you're walking into a prison. and it's supposed to it's supposed to lighten up the audience somehow.
And that was my joke for that qualifier. First time I ever stepped on the stage, it was to fresh meat chants. I was like, wow, I haven't felt this awkward since prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time to do my whole prison joke and worked out for me. Worked out.
But I would say after getting to know you, you became my best comedy friend, which was sad to see you go to Chicago to achieve your dreams. I thought, you were my friend. You've achieved it all already. And then you're like, no, I want more. And so now you're off in Chicago with our other friend. We'll reveal who that is later. But how is that going in Chicago? You liking it?
Man, I love the city of Chicago, but it's been rough because I moved the day after quarantine started. Like I was in Nebraska on my way to Chicago when everything shut down. And moving to a city for comedy in the midst of a pandemic was not my best plan.
Yeah. A lot of the 2020 stuff has made people very scared to be in cities. And you just went right. You're like in Ice Age when they're all running away and the one mammoth is walking the opposite direction from them. That was you.
Thanks. I'm glad I'm a mammoth.
All these U-Haul trucks coming to Bend, Oregon, and you're just going the opposite way and to eat hot dogs and eat pizza.
That's pretty much all I've done, man. Comedy's been pretty well shut down here. There's been some stuff going on, but not like I had envisioned my journey.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that journey. So let's start with the first question here. Thanks for segueing because I'm very, very bad at that. So what is your journey, Ben?
Man, my journey is just making as many people laugh as I can.
So basically, all we've had on this show are comics. And a little birdie told me that's going to change next season. But this season, we've got 2 more comics. So making people laugh, surprisingly, is very common amongst comedians. I had no idea. But I'd like you to elaborate on that. Has it always been like kind of, has getting attention always been important to you? Or is it more of like just a likability thing? You wanted to be likable? Or are you some psychopath who just really wants to make people laugh for no reason?
And I started out, a little bit strange in the sense that like I hate attention. I hate when attention's on me, but I love stand-up because attention's on me and I have the control. Like I can make people hate me, I can make them love me, I can make them laugh, I can make them cry, I can make them whatever, but I have that option. I hate it when the attention's on me and I don't have that control.
So you like attention on you in a very specific environment. Like you would like, so for me, like, yeah, I do hate attention in specific environments. Like at Thanksgiving dinner, when they start asking me questions and the whole table's focused on me, it sucks. And I wish, but it wouldn't suck as much if they weren't allowed to talk and I just came out of a room, said what I had to say, and then just left. That would, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
But you've hated attention of all kinds. Like what do you think? How has that played or shown itself?
And I've hated attention of all kinds, but comedy was a way for me to kind of embrace attention. And in my eyes, if I can make somebody laugh at one of my jokes or laughing about something that I'm saying, it normalizes it. It makes me feel okay about it. And so, I mean, honestly, comedy is just therapy for me. It's my way of saying all my things that I feel, a certain way about and getting a reaction that makes it feel okay.
Right. And it's extremely validating. And like, I feel like through COVID and not being able to perform, there you get this feeling of like, am I funny? Am I not funny? Do people get my train of thought? Am I a sane person? And then, but like when you go up and do comedy, that all just flushes away, and you're just like, oh no, they do get my train of thought,
Yeah.
And, they're following along with what I'm saying, and that's a very refreshing thing.
It makes the crazy feel like it's okay.
Yeah. And one thing I do appreciate you saying is you appreciate having the control, because
Uh-huh.
I was in a band and I liked having the attention, but I didn't like something about it and I didn't understand what it was until I started doing stand up. What I didn't like about it is there are other people involved with your image. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like with the
Uh-huh.
band, you're collaborating with all kinds of people. With comedy, it is all you, 100% you. Yeah, there is a little bit of like who's on before you and what tone does that set to the room, but that doesn't affect their opinion of you as much. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, it depends if a bunch of comics go on in front of you and all bomb, they might have not have trust for you at the beginning, but once you build that up, then they don't have much of an opinion of you until you give them one, and
Yeah.
their opinion of you is completely reliant on you, really.
Yeah. You have that control to change that. They may come in with the assumption that you're going to suck like the first 8 guys, but you have
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ability to control it and change their opinion.
exactly. And how, I guess, how do you leave a set that felt out of control for you? Like, how do what's your thought process?
Oh, I mean, there's very few things like the depression after a bomb. You know? but but it's a weird thing where after the first bomb I wanted to die in a hole right then and there, but
Oh
after the
yeah,
100th one, it's just one of those nights.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's good nights and bad nights.
I mean, I've had and it's like you have so many different bombs. You have different kinds of bombs. Sometimes you bomb so much that you just think it's funny. Like I'll have those nights where I'm just like, okay, whatever. I just okay, and I just kind of laugh it off. And then some are like, oh, I know exactly what I did wrong, and I feel stupid, and I'm kicking myself.
Uh-huh.
Or sometimes you're just too high or like something they're like, but a lot of times now when I bomb I know exactly why, and I don't get as mad at myself unless it's like a really important show. But if it's
Yeah.
just another whatever showcase that I with somebody that I'm on with a lot, then i'm I kind of appreciate it a bit, because it's like how welding strengthens the metal. The weld is the strongest part of the beam. So like if when you have a crack and you weld it together, it's like strong now. And you can
Yeah.
and hopefully eventually your whole thing will be as strong as the as the seal you placed over the weakness that had shown that night. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No,
Obviously, I
and
don't make the same mistake twice, but yeah.
exactly. And I try with my comedy, or at least am in the process of adding those tools, the different types, like all the different skills and tools that you need to have a good set. Like, it's not just the same thing every single show. You got to be able to
Oh yeah.
adapt, and
Well,
that comes with bombing.
and for me, I mean, my jokes, I do one-liners. I'm very kind of scientific and precise. I'll kind of tell a joke the same exact way, and just I only if I change anything, I only change one variable at a time. With a
Yeah.
joke, I'll either change the timing or the wording. I won't do both at the same
Yeah.
time. And then, but like, you're one of those comedians that can legitimately go up to an open mic without notes or anything, and you could just riff. And you got
Yeah.
really good at killing with that. From the, I would say, like the last year before you had left, I just saw this crazy progression with that, and with your like with your bits, it really shines through with like extra tags, or like when somebody interrupts and says something, you just know exactly what to do. And it seems like you are on in that sense every night. I'll have some nights where I can do things like that, but definitely not every night.
Yeah. And that, I certainly wouldn't say that skill is mastered by any means, but I have gotten better at, just riffing and off the cuff, and with, that kind of out of control no set plan, but I bombed at it a lot of times. Almost every open mic I'd try it and I'd bomb, and slowly kind of started to figure out how to paint yourself into a corner and then fight your way back out of it.
Right.
And I mean,
Well, let's get back to the beginning, I guess. So let's go on to the next question. So, what inspired your journey? What made you want to be a comedian?
I went to New York City with my brother and my grandpa. My brother's in the military. He was going out for a deployment. My grandpa took us to New York and Philadelphia on a boys' trip to watch baseball before my brother left. And we're in New York City and just walking past some comedy club. I couldn't even tell you which one it was. And there was a dude out front barking, giving out flyers saying, "Hey, comedy show tonight, come check it out," pretending that Kevin Hart or whoever was on the bill or, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
My brother told me, he's like, "You should try comedy." And at that point, this kid from rural Central Oregon, a little town, didn't know comedy was a thing. Like,
Right.
I wasn't the kid that grew up watching SNL or Chappelle Show or anything like that. And slowly I kind of got exposed to it and decided to try it. And then after that night we talked about the competition and the fresh meat, I was hooked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's one thing that amazes me is because every comedian you talk to now is a huge comedy fan. Every new comedian, anyway, started out as a huge comedy fan, and then they do it. And it almost feels like sometimes, especially when you go to a bigger town and to a bigger open mic, but even at ours, it feels like comedy open mics almost feel like a comedy Comic-Con,
Yeah.
where it's like we're all fans of this and we all just get together to do it. And
Yeah.
I mean, that was me. I was listening to comedy since middle school more than music.
Really?
I was always like a huge comedy nut. So to see somebody, I appreciate seeing somebody who's not a comedy fan, or wasn't initially, get into comedy as a comedian, because I feel like you just have there's a rawness to you that, a lot of comics don't have.
It's definitely, you can see a lot of time where you can see somebody's favorite comedian in them, in their act.
Right.
And I try real hard to kind of avoid that.
Right.
Almost too much, probably. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing. I mean, sometimes I'll do it on accident, but sometimes when I really feel like I'm like, wow, that was 1,000% myself, zero latency. I was just completely myself, and I'm so proud. I'll get off, and people are like, "Wow, you remind me a lot of Stephen Wright," and I go, "Fuck you!" Yeah. Like, did you ever get that? Does anybody ever say that you remind them of somebody?
Dude, I always get Tom Segura, and I'm not real sure
that
why.
makes a lot of sense. I can see that.
I don't see it.
I think it's just in the way you stand. You guys have the exact same silhouette and the exact same posture. You guys have very good posture. That's what I see.
So because we're both fat?
yeah. If you guys, you could make a Ben Moore cookie cutter and make Ben Moore cookies, and people would be like, "Oh, it's nice because you could also make Tom Segura." It would be the exact same. You just color the hair differently. But
that's the only time I've gotten that a couple times, but that's it.
Well, and people say that with the weirdest things too, because it's like I do one-liners. People will say I remind them of Rodney Dangerfield. My style is not like Rodney Dangerfield at all. And people will say that. And it's like, are you saying that just because I'm doing one-liners and that's the only one-liner comic you know? Like,
yeah.
You hear all kinds of things, but
yeah, I'm sure you do more than I do though, just because your style is so much more unique.
Like, I guess because everybody always wants to. People with, because I guess just have a different style than most. That people always seem to be urgent to compare me to somebody.
Yeah, like you can go to 20 small town open mics and you're only going to see, a handful of one-liner type comics.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm the only real one-liner comic in Bend right now. Like we have some people who kind of do some jokey jokes, but it's mostly bits. And I think that kind of holds true to everywhere else is they do more bits and stuff. And honestly, there were two things that drew me towards doing one-liners rather than doing bits. Is first off, my inspirations were Stephen Wright and Mitch Hedberg. Those were my favorite comedians of all time, is still to this day. And then there is also the fact that I did not think anything in my life was interesting. I can't find the humor in my own life, so I have to create these scenarios that are just different. And there are some, and then the more I did comedy, the more I found in my own life that was funny. But starting out, I was like, yeah, I got to just do a joke about my fridge. And like, not that isn't even real. Just like nothing like, or like just jokes about dogs that I don't own. And like, I had to like just make shit up, and that's easier to do in a one-liner. Like you can't tell a story that's completely fake because you have to be really good at it, or else people would obviously think it's fake. But with a one-liner, you can kind of suspend reality a bit more, I feel like.
See, and I feel like my brain moves too much for one-liners. Like I cannot sit down and write a one-liner joke to save my life. I've tried. After watching like Nights When You Kill It, I'm like, I'm gonna go write a joke like that, and I've never once written any one-liner joke. But I can take a story off the top, no problem.
You do have one jokey joke that I do appreciate. That was the we won't tell it on the podcast. Maybe they'll see it someday in your special. But is the you bought a haunted house?
And but that's a real story. Like that's
okay, yeah, but it does come off as a joke that you wrote. Yeah. Like that sounds like a joke, not like a one-liner, but it does sound like a bar joke.
Yeah,
that is very rare from you.
But, and it just kind of morphed into that. It didn't start out as that way. It started out as just a shitty story nobody laughed at.
Well, I laugh at it every time. But well, so let's get on to the next question, because we started with how did you start your journey? Now the next question. Wait, I thought we did. It was wait, did we start with what inspired your journey? Well, we did one of them. So I guess well, we started with how you, I guess, got onto it. So yeah, so okay, yeah, we started with what is your journey, and then we went on to I guess okay, so how did you so basically, yeah, you talked, because I thought we did the second question already, which was how you started. Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's what inspired your journey is the second question. I thought we showed the second question card though. So yeah, if you want to just show how did you start your journey, and we'll just preface it with the fact that we kind of went into that already. Okay. Gotcha. Just tell me when to go. All righty. So, how did you start your journey? We already talked about how you went to New York and how we talked about your first comedy open mic, but did whatever was inside of you that made you want to start comedy, because the way you said your brother had suggested that you try it, was there something like that kind of, what happened before that, do you think, that made you go, oh yeah, maybe I should do comedy, when somebody told you to?
See, the New York trip, I think that was 2014, something like that, somewhere around there. And my brother got me started on podcasts too. And that's when I kind of found out that a comedian was a thing. It wasn't just an Eddie Murphy who I just saw on TV or movies,
Right.
It was an everyday guy that you could walk past or whatever. It was just a funny person. And so I started listening to podcasts, and over the years got more and more into the idea of that kind of lifestyle, not lifestyle, but profession.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, like, go ahead.
Oh, well, what I was gonna say is I had listened to comedy forever, like all kinds of comedy, I like all kinds of genres, all kinds of, whatever, for a very long time. And I had always thought comedians were like, already famous people, or I didn't know really how it worked. I didn't even think about it really.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I started listening to podcasts, and I would listen to the Nerdist podcast, but
Yep.
I would be clicking on musicians. I never listened to comedians. And then I was very late to the Joe Rogan hype, and
Yeah.
I started listening to some podcasts there, and I really liked hearing comedians talk about how they started, and yeah, it gave me a little more like, oh, this is something that just a guy like me can do. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
there was the official podcast was an episode of the Church of What's Happening Now, Joey Diaz's podcast. Him interviewing Ron White was the specific one that really clicked it. And I went, okay, I have a few jokes, but I'm going to put together a set and go do an open mic because of this podcast. And there was just some things in there that they said that kind of romanticized the life of a failing comedian. So I was like, I can fail at comedy for a while, and I was like, that sounds fun. How was that transition for you?
So it was kind of that same thing, got on podcasts, and then once kind of realized that, like, oh, anybody can be a shitty comedian, like, doesn't require anything special. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's when I decided to kind of give it a try, and found the little local country bar that had open mics on Tuesdays. I went the week before, and it was like sat across on the other side of the bar, and like three people had showed up to watch that night. I remember all the comics, all like four of you, bombed that night. And I was like, oh, I can definitely do this. And I showed
Yeah.
up the next week, and it was a packed house for the competition night. And I knew if I didn't do it that night, if I would have waited a week, that I never would have done it. It was like now
Yeah.
or never.
It's funny. That's exactly what I did. Is I came and watched. I saw a showcase,
Okay.
and this was for a different producer than what we started with. But and it was a venue that didn't even exist when we started. But I went there and I just saw it, and they were like, "This guy came all the way from wherever, like somewhere in California, and he just bombed." And I was like, "Wow. Well, if he gets paid to travel to do comedy and he bombed." I can do it just showing up for free. Like in the same, I can go bomb. I was like, the seeing the expectations be so low was very comforting, I
Yeah.
thought. And yeah, I don't know. We got to, I think, but Ben became very interesting just in the way that, um, it's so small that we all got opportunities before we deserved them, and then we got to grow into them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't get 30 minutes until somebody is sure they are ready for 30 minutes. We got 20 minutes like within our first couple of months, and we sucked at it, but
So bad.
it made us see what we were missing. We gotta really get face to face with what we were missing, like what we couldn't do, and that made us go, oh, okay, and then we could get onto it. Whereas people who are, they have to try to see the reasons they aren't ready for a 20-minute spot while doing 3-minute spots.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like we got to have a perspective that not many people from bigger comedy scenes get to have, which I think is why so many comics here just have accelerated growth. I'll talk about, give Cody Michael a shout out.
Shout out.
He was just so good, like right away. I mean, he had done some open mics where he was from, but not very long, and he just came here and was just started killing like pretty, close. And it's like, I don't know, like we've got good open mics here. I talk about that too much on this podcast, so I'll try not to, but it's that I have you on here. I like to reminisce.
Yeah,
But,
I miss those days.
yeah. But you're in Chicago now, which might be a good time to talk about the next question. So, what are some notable obstacles in your journey and how did you overcome them? I don't know. I put that second part on there because I also like to talk about some notable obstacles in your journey that you haven't overcome yet. But what do you think are the ones that stand out most to you?
Oh, right now I feel like it's pretty easy just to say that the pandy is a pretty good obstacle. Having
Yeah, I
having
haven't
moved
heard it
here.
shortened down like that. The pandy. I didn't know scientific terms would get into surfers' hands. I just, but yeah. So how is the pandy affecting? Has it been affecting your writing much? Because I know it did
100%.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you and I talked about this early on the first couple months in that when you're just secluded, isolated, that it is hard to feel funny.
It's hard to feel like your thoughts have any base in sanity or reality. It's hard to go like, oh, somebody else would think this is funny without even just talking to people. Like you couldn't just go out and see people interact. You couldn't go out and people watch. You couldn't like all the things that I do to write, I couldn't do. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is telling horrible ideas for jokes on stage and just going, oh, okay, I know what that needs, or I know that can't be here, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have that, you're just writing horrible jokes and with no way to refine it. And I wrote nothing at the end. Like I had maybe 3 one-liners that I had written by the end of the pandemic, and that I don't know, it just wasn't. It didn't feel good. Like when I came back to that first open mic and people were like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what you came up with during those 3 months. And it's like, ugh, well, I think you can wait. But,
no, it's without that kind of just interaction, it's hard to feel creative. It's hard to feel funny. It's hard to get those juices flowing.
Right. Yeah. So has there been like an overarching obstacle you'd say that has kind of affected it since before all this COVID stuff? Like if everything was still just going as it was, what do you think your biggest obstacle would be?
I honestly think my biggest obstacle is myself.
Yeah.
Even, before the pandemic, after, during, all of it, it's still like, in Central Oregon, that small community, it's easy to feel like the big fish.
Yeah.
But I still remember with I didn't talk to any, my first 6 months doing comedy before we were friends or anything. I didn't talk to anybody. I just showed up, sat in the corner, did my set, sat in the corner and left.
Same here. That's how I liked it. I like being the guy who walks in and nobody knows what he's really thinking until he goes on stage. I thought of it as like I was an old gunslinger into the saloon and just like I really liked that aspect of it. And then I don't know, I started to be kind of an asshole by doing that. But also it's just I suck at connecting with people right away. I mean, I don't like, at least when I am like as a friend, I suck. I can't like just start being friends with people without like knowing a good amount of who they are, that's just my own insecurities, but it often comes off as me being an asshole, and it kind of is, but did you ever get that feeling? Or I mean, you
100%
social with people right off the bat,
See, I like to pretend that I am, but
well, it comes off that way at least.
Oh, thank you. But the anxiety part of it, it's brutal. It is crippling sometimes.
I totally agree. And that accentuated during the virus or during the quarantine. But when I got back to work and I was talking to people, I actually really liked it. And I've been a lot better in that sense. since the kind of things started opening up around Bend and I started talking to people more, I don't know. I really needed that 3 months to be just live like a sewer rat in my home by myself. It was like just like hunched over in the corner with a loincloth going, my precious, but it was just a donut.
Yeah, I would say that, the mental aspects that I put in my own way those are the biggest obstacles. And,
Yeah.
from
I
the
would
day
say
I
that's
started
the
comedy to
same for
now.
me. Yeah, that's the same for me as well. Just depression and anxiety. And the depression. It's interesting because you kind of think like, oh, I won't be able to write on the depression, but I can write on the depression. I cannot write on the anxiety. The
Yeah.
anxiety is a hard one to write with. And there have been a couple jokes I have that have kind of come from my anxiety, but it is a hard thing to write because you're just constantly worried that it's not good enough or that
Mm-hmm.
people are going to think something of you if you say this. And it's hard to come up with new jokes that way. Like I
Yeah.
cannot write on the anxiety whatsoever.
No, it's difficult. And yeah, it's hard to even feel creative and all that stuff. But for me, it also feels that like those dark places are also where a lot of the beauty comes from.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like part of me doesn't want to fix it because like that's where the funny is.
Yeah, yeah.
In those
Yeah,
fucked up thoughts.
sometimes. Well, I don't know. Sometimes, but sometimes when I am just completely good and running on full blast, I think those are my best shows and the best jokes that I write.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, which is good because I can fight to get over it, and it is, that was a nice relief off of my shoulders because that is a big thing that people. I feel like a lot of artists fight with, where it's like I have all these problems that make me better at the thing that I love doing. And if I fix
Mm-hmm.
these problems, I'm not gonna be. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's big for a lot of artists in general. And I don't know, I think I don't know, maybe it's necessary that I had felt that, but I don't think I constantly need to.
No, I think, it's something that you got to learn from, but not necessarily hold on to.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you need that experience, but you don't need it every day.
Well, and have you been? So, I mean, I know you have because it's just something that happens. But like when you're like super depressed and down, and you have a show tonight, what's usually your process?
Man, I spend so long getting ready, like
Oh
picking
yeah,
out
me
my.
too. I do that too. I call it just a mini spa day, and
Yep.
I get everything ready in the shower just perfectly. I have my tablet playing a show outside of the shower, so when I get out of the shower and I do like I get to watch something. I do it. I try to make myself feel as much like a celebrity as possible. Like I use lotion. I do like whatever I can to just prime myself. And
Yeah.
good. But I know one part that is in it for you that isn't in it for me is fashion. Like I don't put much thought into my clothes at all. Actually, the least thought I put into it is probably the better. It's the when I put more thought into it, people are like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
No, see, fashion's a huge part of it for me because that's where I get the confidence from. Like if I
Right.
feel like I'm dressed well and I just spent the last 2 hours perfecting this outfit, making sure all the wrinkles are out of the shirt and like really just absorbing my mind in the outfit, then it's kind of my way of walking through it ahead of time and kind of playing it in my head and, going over it and getting ready.
Right.
And then I feel confident because I look good. And then it's a snowball effect.
Right, right. Well, we do have to shoot this episode a little quickly, so let's get on to the next question. I just say that so I don't have to have a real segue. So next question. So where would you say you are now in your journey? We talked about the beginning. Where do you think? So if you talked to yourself a couple years ago, when you right before you start opening, you did your first open mic, you could talk to yourself in the walk from the table to the mic. You said, "Hey man, don't worry about it because blank. What would you say? What's somewhere that you feel secure at in comedy?
I feel secure in the fact that, even if it's the biggest, as far as comedy ever takes me as an open micer in Chicago, it still took me out of, the little hometown of 30,000 people and across the country to a city I didn't know anybody or been to before or know anything. Like, I didn't move with furniture. I could rent my furniture still, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can say that I'm here to pursue telling dick jokes for a living. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
just that ability is, that's reassuring, but it also just feels like the start.
Right. Well, yeah, and I feel the same way. I mean, I haven't moved, but I feel, I've traveled a bit and like for shows, and also it's just the amount. It's kind of cool starting out in the town that I grew up in because I get to do things like, I would go see like a play at the Tower with my mom when I was a kid. And now it's like, and then I get to perform there. And I'm like, it's a really surreal thing. Or it's like, because I had my band in high school, I get to do shows at places I tried and tried and tried to get with my band. And it's just like, nope, now I'm at Volcanic. Now I'm at Silver Moon. Now I'm at, and it's
Yeah.
just a cool feeling to see how much like, or it's like, oh man, I really hope they write. I want to get an article about, or in the Source, our little entertainment magazine here. I would be like, oh my God, look, our event is in the Source. And then it's like, now it's like they have like, I have whole paragraphs about me. And it's just a cool, like that. For that reason, I'm really glad I came up in Bend. Also, just, the opportunities for first starting out are great. I mean, obviously it kind of starts to dry out because, there isn't there isn't much to go from here, here in Bend on. Like, there isn't a whole lot more.
Yeah.
But I am just glad that I'm trying at something. I'm putting effort towards something and, succeeding at certain things. And then it feels almost like I'm in a movie now. Like I fail at things and then I succeed and I come out of the ashes. You get that kind of thing where you feel like your life is has a little more of a narrative to it now.
It does, especially right now with everything going on. And I've thrown around the idea of, going back home to Oregon and just working again or moving somewhere else and trying it there. And, it's been a little difficult, but I feel confident in the idea of like, no, I got to at least give Chicago a chance. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to at least
I'm
try
thinking
it.
about, I've been thinking about moving. I mean, I just have to get certain parts of my life together before I do. And then we'll see from there. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, I don't know. Depends. Well, I don't know where I'm gonna go yet. But let's move on to the next question here, actually. So, who is somebody you're grateful for being in your journey? I talked about preface this podcast with the fact that I had chose you and somebody else. I know this person isn't exactly your choice, but the next episode is Fredo, our friend. Goes by John, or he goes by Fredo, Johnny Alfredo. He is a comic here, and what are your thoughts on him and his comedy before we
Man,
do him next?
Fredo's an interesting dude. He's moved all around the country, done a lot of different things, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see that in his comedy. You can see that, you can see the North Carolina in it. You can see the Bend in it. You can see it everywhere that he's
The
been.
Austin in it. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
poet before, and he still kind of is, but he's one of the most ambitious guys I know. Like, as far as like, if there's something in like if somebody has something going on that he can get on, he'll get on it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter whose it is, which makes it isn't exactly flattering that he's on the show today, but but no, I really appreciate that about him, is that he'll get on anything, and it's just he's got some of the greatest like opening jokes ever, I think. And just his progression was crazy too. You know, seeing him at the beginning, and now he, like, when he left, he was just a titan. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how you two do in Chicago.
Man, I still remember when that dude told jokes while solving a Rubik's Cube in a room full of people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What?
Yeah. That was good. Well, I mean, it was a talent. They were supposed to do a talent, but the interesting thing was, is he was the only person with a talent, and while making people laugh during the talent, we were supposed to do our set, and then we had a talent afterwards. And he was just doing a Rubik's Cube, and then he had some scripted stuff he was saying, but then he was also just joking around doing it, and it was hilarious. And he was seriously just solving a Rubik's Cube, and he made it very captivating.
Yeah, that was the same night I learned that you sound awfully a lot like Johnny Cash.
Yeah, and if you would like to see more of that, check out my episode of Triple Threat on Big Laugh Comedy Network, where I did that. But yeah, I just did my stand-up, and then I did a Johnny. And it was funny because I tried to do my whole stand-up set in as high of a pitched voice as I could to make it not sound like Johnny Cash. And I didn't do well with that delivery, but it just made it crazy when I switched to Johnny Cash, because that part killed. And then, but the only shitty part was everybody was like, "Oh my God, you should quit comedy and just do Johnny Cash covers." It's like, oh, no. But it was cool. Like, I mean, really, my main focus was the music part. You know, the comedy, I wasn't thinking too much about that night, but it was definitely fun. But yeah, so we should close out the episode, and the audience, I'll let you guys know, we're doing something rare. Even though these will come out a week apart from each other, we are filming this and the next episode all in one day. That's why we're all wearing the same clothes in the next one. So we're going to close out this episode and go ahead and record the next one. Thank you, Ben, for being on.
Thank you.
The audience, will see you in one more week after this comes up, and you'll be the co-host on the next episode. So
Perfect.
See you guys. Anything you would like to plug, your Instagram or anything?
Ben More Comedy for everything. Check out the website, Ben More Comedy.
Wow, you got a website. I got to get me one of those. But yeah, so check him out, guys. I am at Cole_Robeson on Instagram, Cole Robeson on Facebook, obviously. You catch this podcast every Tuesday. We're coming down to the season finale here soon. Not a whole lot of shows going on, but if you just so happen to live in Salem, Oregon, I will be there on the 20th. Check out my Facebook for more details on that. Thank you guys very much. Have a good rest of your week. We'll have another 5 minutes here. So thank you.
Thank you.